Good morning and welcome to all the people that were with us yesterday and to those that came in today. Buenos días a todos los que están conectados a través de Collaborate, de América Latina y de Estados Unidos. Durante la mañana vamos a tener una sesión bien interesante relacionada con los trabajos que hicimos en los grupos de discusión de ayer. So today what we're going to do in the morning, we're going to have 3 leaders from 3 groups discuss some topics, specific topics that have to deal with retention, with assessment, with distance learning, and information systems. And this is a result, the discussion was a result of a survey that we sent out to key personnel in each one of our member institutions to gather their interest and see how we were going to focus the discussion. So we're going to have Dr. Robert Whittaker talking about retention. We're going to have Dr. Robert Lamana talking about assessment, and we're going to have Professor Jeannie Flanagan talking about distance learning and information systems and their perception and what happened during each one of the discussions and how HETS can help us out or help them out to be a better consortium organization and see how we can share resources and some ideas that came up yesterday. So I'll let Dr. Robert Whittaker start with retention.
First of all, I'd like to thank HETS for arranging these colloquia conversations. It's unlike any conversation that I've had. It's unlike a group of practitioners or instructors who get together to showcase materials. It's unlike the gathering of academic technicians or IT people. It mixed IR, institutional research, with IT, with practitioners, with academic technology and assessment. And all of these put together in the same room to discuss common interest is a rather a new experience for me, and I found it very stimulating. A very productive mashup, as it were, of silos that don't often get mixed together. And so I want to commend HETS for putting this together in such a way and bringing the member institutions together who also share a number of other concerns. The session that I'm reporting on was the first session, and our charge was to identify and share best practices in retention, assessment, information technologies, and distance learning, and to explore the ways that we might collaborate with HETS. The first item of discussion, and I should say, by the way, that although there were bullets in the agenda, interested, committed, expert group like this tended to find its own track and its own way to discuss various problems. And so if we didn't follow and complete all the bullets in the agenda, we certainly did do a lot and did cover a lot of new territory. What we thought or discussed first was the question of what kinds of technology facilitated tracking systems there are in use for early intervention and support, early intervention of students who are struggling, and support for students as they're studying in a semester. And there were really a variety of systems that were used, a number of early warning systems. In one case, it was part of a customer relations management system, or a CAM. These categories, or this category of systems, depended on a faculty member, an instructor, to trigger markers or to trigger events that would then be followed up by a support staff. And there were a variety of systems that we used, but they all had this in common. What was particularly interesting, however, were a couple of instances which used a sort of silent data to track behavior. That is to say, using data, as our systems collect enormous amounts of data, to track the behavior of students in an automated fashion without human intervention, if you will, and in a silent way without contacting, if you will, or asking the students themselves for information. For example, systems that would take and note a period of inactivity in a learning management system, a period of absence from work, let's say for 2 weeks, that would trigger an alert. and alert the system that this may be a student who's struggling, who's not engaged, who needs support. In one case, there was an integration of Moodle, the learning management system, together with a student information system in order to register non-activity and bring this to the attention of support services. Even more interesting was the use of some behavioral science analysis of behavioral patterns that can be identified in students, such things as registering late or changing courses frequently in the registration process, late fee payments, these types of behavior which are identifiable in a data system and which seem to indicate or would give advanced warning for students who are in difficulty. One of the problems with early warning systems is that often they're not early enough. That is to say that the instructor reacts, and not all of them always react, they have to be trained and developed as well, soon enough. Usually what they see is a student who's already struggling. Is there a way to capture or to anticipate problems even before they show up? And this use of all sorts of student data that are in our systems, our registration systems, even in systems that track textbook purchases, for example, or in sophisticated universities that have electronic systems for with passkeys or card swipes, where students are in terms of entering classrooms or exiting classrooms, this sort of thing can be useful data. It begins to sound a little bit like the sort of thing that's in the news that our poor fellow Snowden finds himself running away from, that is collecting Wi-Fi and other kinds of data in order to make assumptions about personal behavior or this sort of thing. But I think in the context of helping students, this is an interesting possibility and something that is available to a number of us as we gather more and more data about student behavior. There's much more than we can use, or than we are using at current. So the second point of discussion had to do with online learning success, online learning readiness, especially when dealing with the special demands of online learning, the expectations that both students have on the one hand and faculty on the other, the instructors on the other, and questions of student motivation and awareness. What sorts of things are being done by various colleges within and universities within HETS, and how can we share this information? A number of systems were shared and described. I believe it's the MCC, our host here, who has an e-learning readiness self-check that students go through, and this produces a score, but is not a test score that is to be passed, but rather an advisory score. In addition to, however, this is not a requirement for taking online courses. The college does, I understand, have a minimum GPA level in order to be sure that the students are not having other problems that would perhaps complicate their success in online learning. BCC, Boston College, provides an assessment test that gives students an opportunity to see what an online course is like, a test course that they can participate in to get a sense of what is expected or what the experience is of online learning. Another school that teaches in hybrid format and has professional courses provides a mandatory 2-week student orientation course in online learning, and a student cannot enroll without completing this course. Berkeley, for one, put together an online retention task force to study the expectations of students, and particularly comparing them to the expectations of the faculty and the real experiences of learning online. As a result, created a course they call the Road to Success, which is a 0-credit course required as a prerequisite for registering in online learning courses. And basically, as I understood it, this is a course on how to use the learning management system, in this case, Blackboard. At Lehman, my school, we're now beginning to pilot or to develop and pilot a certification program for students as a prerequisite for registering in online courses, whether async or hybrid. We have a lot of students online. 15% of our enrollment are online students. We have no distance programs yet, and as a matter of fact, these aren't really distance students, but there are local students who are using online learning for time shifting, and we expect for improving their credit acquisition of credit towards graduation. BMCC also has an innovative e-learning center that is a physical place, not a virtual place, where students can drop in, call in, email in, and get the support they need, which we all know is particularly critical at the beginning of the semester. This was a summary then of the types of support services and preparation, orientation work that colleges are providing to support students in their online learning and to help them improve their success in this mode of learning. Our third point was the question of what new technologies are in place, are used in order to assist with the motivation and engagement, improve the motivation and engagement of students. We had some interesting discussions about the BYOD movement, that is bring your own device, systems that would allow students to log in, to use whatever mobile or other device they would have, a computer, a tablet, a phone, in order to access students. There was some interesting discussion about some of the downsides of this. That is the stress that such broad-based use of multiple devices can cause for a system, for the Wi-Fi systems, or indeed for the electrical grid, as students have to go around and find plugs in order to charge their devices. The connectivity is something that is expected by students, and something which one assumes is perhaps a factor in retention. In terms of the role of technology in assisting students who are Spanish language speakers and learners in a technology or information environment that is overwhelmingly English, we discussed this. Alfredo mentioned that in a survey that he had seen only 3% of web materials or structural materials are available in Spanish. And this presents a serious problem for students for whom native language or their primary language is Spanish. For some schools, like Berkeley, for example, they use TESOL scores as a way to assure that the students have the language ability to deal with courses that are in English. There was some discussion about how various colleges use lecture capture, video programs, other supplemental material, PowerPoints that are used in class to make them available to students so that they can then go back and review. And this is particularly important for students whose language skills may be weak and for whom the repetition of materials, particularly in a lecture capture or a video segment presentation of particular problems or particular processes, the repetition is an important and a useful tool. There are many systems and many technologies, much support software out there, but it was remarked that it's something that we have yet to really measure the effectiveness of. We're providing as much support as we can, and yet we're not really sure, as my colleague Joe Middleton from Lehman mentioned, we're not really sure what their effectiveness is or how we can manage this. I think what came out of this discussion was the importance of sharing solutions and techniques and practices for handling these linguistic barriers, particularly among HSIs, of course. And by the way, a side note, we had an interesting colloquy about the categorization of schools as HSIs, which is a federal term, and that it's not applicable to the for-profit area, although they may share many of the same challenges, and I have in mind Berkeley. And of course, the solutions, they're often more, more innovative and perhaps even quicker to find solutions to some of the problems that we all face. Finally, the question as to how can HETS help in this process or addressing these questions. Alfredo had a number of suggestions, and one of them was to provide, that HETS can provide a platform, a repository for sample solutions, that many of the things that were discussed we might well present in a more formal way with resources and references through HETS, through the HETS website, HETS portal. And also an interesting idea that HETS can be something of a marketing platform for Hispanic institutions or Hispanic serving institutions to reach out to students who are interested in finding higher education institutions to provide support for them, particularly for their in Spanish and for people of Spanish cultural background. Of course, there is the opportunity and almost a mandate to share resources and to use the expertise that each of our individual campuses has developed to share with others. Perhaps there was a question that perhaps HETS could also provide something of an evaluation or commentary on how some of these solutions are being used, perhaps something like a customer reports survey that you find in online resources often, just the gathering or the blogging about the way in which materials or programs or software solutions are being used. And finally, that it would be very useful to continue this conversation virtually next year, and beginning perhaps in the fall, through something like Collaborate, in order to capture the sort of synergy that we have in this mixture of people interested in questions of retention and the role of technology. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge Alfredo's very expert guiding of this conversation and providing materials for us and giving us this opportunity to cover a number of topics in a rather short time. So that's my brief report. Chairman, I guess if you have questions, I'd be happy to, or maybe there'd be some general questions.
Yeah, I think we have some time. Maybe it's better now to make any questions or comments as we go topic by topic. So, any questions or comments? Okay. Please.
The suggestion of trying to get in with early warning systems behavioral data. What do some of the schools do that are seeing students buying textbooks early, textbook late, or registering late, or changing classes? I mean, what kind of action is taken? I mean, I can assume certain things, but I'd like to hear that.
These were anecdotal references, and they weren't reports on studies. My impression is, I don't know if Joan is here. I don't see her from BMCC. He's beginning pilot work in gathering the data. I think we're at a stage now where we recognize that these are often markers of student engagement, but actually putting them together and studying, we haven't gotten that far. I think it's a recognition that there's this potential to use these. There may well be institutions out there that do that. There was a reference to Arizona as having a particularly sophisticated information network that can track student purchases and comings and goings in buildings and classrooms and these sorts of things, and that whether it is used or not, I don't know, but that it has a potential for it. So that's about the level. It's a sort of investigatory level.
Just wondering too, the comments by students about invasion of privacy.
There's a very real danger of that if it's not used carefully or in a way that is professionally responsible. Yes.
Yes, the issue with that is, again, the trade-off. All of these technologies, tend to be expensive. And if I gather all this data and there's minimum impact, or people don't respond to the data that's being gathered, you don't have enough staff to analyze it and then do something with the student, it may be getting a very low return for investment. So it would be very valuable if we could get information on what has this resulted. You know, have we improved the retention? Have we improved the motivation? And also, another comment regarding the online education readiness. I think that's a very valuable tool. And I would suggest that we at HETS focus on trying to put something together like that would be applicable to all students in the placita. Because that would bring a lot of movement, a lot of traffic. And if we could maybe get some of our teams to work on some of the best features of this readiness module, then putting that on the website, open to every kid, would be very powerful support. So I would like to suggest that.
I have a comment on that readiness. Usually it's just a list, it's very static, and if you're, motivated, self-motivated, etc. Maybe what we can do in HETS is actually insert some examples of work, some assignments, where this could be not only a readiness checklist, but basically a training or a mini training for them.
Perfect, because it's what do you do if you have checked the wrong thing?
Correct.
You're going to have to take a course anyway.
Yeah.
So how do I solve that limitation or lack of whatever?
Resources, etc.
So each one should lead to a product that would help me develop that one.
Right.
And then it's a comprehensive course.
Right.
So I would suggest that we take that as a major charge, because that would be a very valuable tool from HETS. And I'm sure we should be able to get funding for that.
Okay.
Well, I guess Rene and Mr. Jose, you already mentioned what I was going to mention, what I was going to say with regards to the readiness of online education. Maybe, I don't know if you can expand just a little bit of what topics are covered there, because like Rene said, there's not only some exercises that we can put there or a checklist, but also pointing them to resources that are going to help them build those qualities where there are weaknesses for them, just so that, like for instance, time management, especially for those younger students, is going to be probably the biggest challenge when they're taking an online course, because they think, or the perception may be, oh, this is going to be easier because I can do things on my own time, but then, their life gets on the way, and then managing those situations, that's not necessarily academically related, but rather, more personal.
There are two basic topics that exist in these courses, sometimes together, sometimes separately. One is the actual how to use the learning management system, and secondly is how to manage your time, the self-discipline, the time management, and the sort of skills that are needed that we know lead to online success. So there are two ways. There's the technical side, how do you navigate the system, and then what do you need to do yourself, as it were, to manage yourself in order to be an independent learner. And what does this mean? And that is probably, in my own estimation, experience, the more difficult one to teach students about. They're really good at knowing how to get in and out of the doors and get around and do business. But in fact, learning what it is that they have to be able to do themselves and following through is a major challenge. I should say that in terms of interactivity, what we've thought of at Lehman is to use a course like this as an example of an excellent online course. That is to say, lots of interactivity. Use it even to show faculty members as to what a course really can be, and to have this and make it not only a warning system, but a learning system, a learning experience for students. So this is something that we think is particularly important, and I think this is reflected in a number of the systems.
I think you mentioned soft skills. That's the big one. Because even younger generations of students, the technical skills, some of them coming already with those digital windows, but those soft skills are the ones that are critical to be successful.
I think before Rodolfo.
No, just a question. What you mentioned about the Lehman project, is that accessible to outsiders like us, or could it be accessible so that we can look at it, or is that a
we're now developing it.
Product?
We're now developing it.
Oh, okay.
One of our operational principles is that it must be open, although there must be some limited access, perhaps through our student intranet. Might be a way to do it. It can't be as as exclusive in its access as a course is to sign to Blackboard, but it has to be broader. It has to be broad enough so that anybody interested who has a relationship to the university would be able to access. And of course, it's something which then could be made open to the membership of HETS as we develop this. And we intend also to learn as best we can from the experiences of our colleagues. There's no sense
could be a
reinventing the wheel
collaborative
because lots of people.
Because if you open it, it could be a collaborative.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Any comments on this?
Okay. Rodolfo.
Yeah, the question that I had is, do you have data that shows that students that take online courses are less successful than face-to-face participants? Because in our system, our students do as well, if not better. And so I mean,
Right.
we're raising the question of how do we make them more successful, but they're already being successful then.
I suppose if one could summarize a number of studies that have been done and our own experience at Lehman, first of all, the non-success rate, that is to say the withdrawals, the disappearances, the failures, tend to be higher in an online course, that is an asynchronous course, than in a regular class-to-class course. And in hybrid courses, that element seems to be less effective. In terms of student success, we've found, and the literature tends to back this up, that good students coming in with good grades tend to do better. And that they tend to excel at this, and that the middle area is the area that tends to sag in student performance. That is to say, students who are sort of average students tend to find challenges in online learning that makes their performance, degrades their performance a little bit. And this is where helping them to understand what they are doing can bring them then up at least to the level that they've been doing. That's a very, very generalized statement. But there are very specific challenges, and we've done some correlations about withdrawal and success rates in our college, and there are higher non-success rates for colleges, not by a huge amount, but enough to be worrisome.
There you go.
Thank you very much for your comments. I like the idea of the tracking. I think we look at persistence, retention, and graduation. The ability to track our students from the freshman experience to graduation is so critical. I just came back from this meeting where the National Student Clearinghouse really looks at the shifting of our students, how they go to different colleges, and those who have the ability to persist through changing not only different sectors, but different colleges, even across state lines. One of the things we started at Berkeley College and Antonio knows well because we talked about it, we developed a scholarship to increase retention on transfer students from the community colleges. So we are able to provide them with the complete 90 credits seamless into the four-year degree, and then we give them, a large scholarship. It's all about money and ability to be retained. We started a program about 2 years ago, and our retention rate for those over 600 students already is about 78%. So those students not only are going to graduate from the community colleges, but they're also, be able to place in jobs. And you really track them. So I think monitoring the students and tracking early and developing partnerships, it's a way to go in higher education today.
Yes, just a brief comment. I agree very much, and at Lehman, as many of the senior colleges at the City University of New York have a high proportion of transfer students. More than 2/3 of our students at Lehman, for example, are transfer students, and most of them from sister colleges within the university, which then gives us both the opportunity, if not the obligation, to see what the training is on those campuses that are our source colleges, to see what they are learning, in particular in terms of online readiness. Have they been provided with the sort of preparation that is necessary, and to help that across the system, to provide more of this across the system. But it is a problem because with transfer students and tracking them, they come from many different sources, and they're awfully difficult to identify and follow. In our universities, we're very interested in first-time, full-time freshmen, and not terribly interested in transfers.
Alfredo?
If it's
And,
possible,
what? Okay, Alfredo and Antonio.
Yes, I'd like to make a couple of comments and great questions that you have been asking to Robert. And in the next couple of groups, you're going to see specific answers and strategies that some institutions are using from the assessment point of view and from the technological or the technology point of view. And also, I want to remind you that through the Virtual Plaza website, we have a student placita and student readiness, student support, if you're taking courses online, if you're taking courses, traditional courses face-to-face. We have checklists, we have rubrics, we have surveys, questionnaires that students can take, and the results give them solutions to resolve some of their issues if they're ready or not ready to take courses online or face-to-face courses. And the other thing is, and Robert mentioned it, through HETS, all your institutions can highlight your best practices for Hispanics. And for those 2-year institutions, students that are looking to go on to a 4-year institution, if we can identify those highlights to keep them in the streamline from 2-year college in HETS to a 4-year college in HETS, I mean, everybody's going to win. So that's what I'm trying to develop through the Virtual Plaza and also through the HETS.org website. So that will make it more attractive for Hispanics. And then again, Robert mentioned it, to those prospective students from high school that are looking for a student that feels that Hispanics are something different, something special, so that they can get immersed in university, in all our universities. Okay? So
What Alfredo brings reminds me of the data we received yesterday from the survey. And well, we didn't have 100% knowledge of the services that HETS provides. And that was a survey among the key people in our institutions, not to mention students, which is the point that Alfredo is bringing. So this is, again, we are celebrating, or we are going to celebrate 20 years of existence. Let's make some noise. Let's make the students know in all our institutions of the services we provide to them. I think we have so much work to do on that area, so let's work on that. And Antonio, and then
I guess I want to respond to the question in regards to technology and how that can trigger a student that might need support, because traditionally we depend on the faculty member or the student to self-report and seek their help. Our concern is how do we use technology without being invasive and trying to use those as triggers to alert us that student might need. So any ideas that or projects that anyone else is working on, we'd like to hear about it, because we're looking at technology as a vehicle. That is something that is going to intrude on student privacy, but to allow us to know when something might be ready. And there's simple things like someone made reference to the purchase of textbook. Now that we have all these e-books, that may not be as consistent, but just little things that students might do that might correlate to their lack of persistence or having a particular issue or problem. That's what really we're trying to be exploratory and trying to determine where that might be effective. So we don't have anything open, but I think our concern is not to replace it, but to look for vehicles. I believe that we started this year, and other colleges have done it. The learning community has been very helpful in that perspective, because now the students are in smaller groups together. There's someone monitoring that with them. So we're looking for as many opportunities to be supported in that with various students' products.
One of the things that we did, and perhaps you're doing too, is we didn't focus on students, we focused on faculty. Faculty are concerned about technology, they're not comfortable with it. And so 4 years ago, we gave our faculty a full semester release without any count towards their tenure for a sabbatical. release of courses to teach them how to teach online. And by doing that, it's had an extraordinary success with our student body, where the Latino population of Westwood State has the highest graduation rate among all the demographics, including people who look like me. And that's the reality. We're going to have a Holyoke Community College, which is near us, a predominantly Latino city. We're going to start a non-residential online 2-year degree that transfers to a non-residential online 4-year degree to be able to reach working people, to reach single mothers, those who can't come in residence and can't afford to come in residence in an institution. And that's why U.S. News Campus is number one for teaching quality. But if you don't spend the money on the teachers, you're never going to have any success with students.
No, this is very true, and we've been at this a long time, not at Leland, for example, to get this high number of enrollments online. And it really represents an enormous resource that we've developed among the faculty. And this is a resource that cannot be overestimated. The fact that you have that many faculty who are able to deliver these types of courses online, hybrid, I suppose, is extremely valuable, and it has to be maintained.
And one thing that folks may look at, and maybe what many people are familiar with Western Governors University. If you don't look at Western Governors, you're not looking at the future. And it will eliminate 2-year colleges. It will eliminate. You'll have small colleges throughout the country, particularly in the Northeast, looking like Catholic churches. They're going to be empty for sale. Western Governors is $5,000 for every 6 months. It's competency-based. Take as many courses as you want online. $5,000 for a semester. $10,000 a year. You can graduate with a baccalaureate degree in 1 year. You can challenge every course. And if it's recognized and accepted by HR departments and authorized by accredited agencies, it is going to be very difficult 2, 3, 5 years from now to compete with something that is embraced by students who don't want the transformational education in a 4-year degree, and they want to transition into a job, whether it be nursing or accounting or other courses with some clinical aspects, but you can teach all online. It's going to be a challenge for traditional institutions, even though a lot of us are entrepreneurial. It's going to be an enormous challenge.
An additional challenge. Okay. Edu, do you have a question?
No, I have a comment. I don't know if I'm allowed to.
Yeah?
Yeah, please.
So I'm currently a student, right? And the first thing that I did when I was in college as a freshman is that you learn about blackboarding that as a freshman student. And you learn about time management and all the resources that you can have. So I think that if a student have a session, like when they're freshman, like the class, it's like a 1-credit class. And they basically learn how to transition from high school to college. And that was really helpful. You really learn about time management and how to navigate all the different resources online. So I think that the best way that a student can be ready for the resources that you offer is for if you introduce those ideas in the classroom first, and then they are able to implement that online.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? If not, Robert, thank you very much.
Thank you. We understand the factors that promote college success, the impact of approaches that truly facilitate success and quality, the secret to a solid teaching process for the Hispanic learner, and the key role of technology to make this happen. HETS, an opportunity to propose, find, and integrate innovative technology solutions to education. We go beyond higher education. We strive for a higher vision. Visit us at www.hets.org. HETS Consortium.